global framework of climate services was established with the need to enhance the use of climate services because of the fact that we have climate change happening globally, and then there's need for adaptation and mitigation. But there was little climate services to ensure that this adaptation and mitigation goes on, as we know that the disasters have increased, which are climate and weather related. So the global framework of climate services has 5 components. The first one is the user interface platform, which has 5 exemplars. It's talking about the production of climate services and the usage of it. So we have the producers and users. Now the 4 areas which have been identified for use is agriculture and food security, which needs climate services. We have also health and public safety, which needs also these services. Disaster risk reduction, because it is increasing with the climate change. And also now we are talking of energy. We can talk of others like transport later. So that is the first component of the user interface platform of the global framework of climate services. The other one is observation and monitoring, because we need more observations and monitoring to ensure that we have availability of data. And then we have climate services information system, where we need tools to process this data from where they are observed to the forecasting level. We have, of course, also, as you say, the research, prediction, and modeling, which will give us the understanding of the climate system and how to predict it. And then capacity development, because you need expertise and competencies in order to do all that we have described above. You need good forecasters and you need good observers. So that is the essence of the global framework of climate services. It is implemented at global, regional, and national level. Now, when you come to the AMCOMET process, this is the African Ministerial Conference on Meteorology. It is in Africa, and it was started because the directors of meteorological services in Africa saw that their meteorological services were being underfinanced by government. So we needed a level at ministerial level, at policy level, in order to enhance the work of meteorological services. So there was a need to establish the African Ministerial Conference on Meteorology. WMO approached the African Union Commission, and this was done in Nairobi 2010, where the first ministerial conference on meteorology was formed. This conference formed the AMCOMET process, the AMCOMET as African Ministerial Conference on Meteorology, as a high-level mechanism for the development of meteorology in Africa. They came up with a strategic plan, which is called an integrated strategic plan. And this plan has 5 pillars. The first pillar is for political support to enhance the feasibility of national meteorological and hydrological services and the feasibility of regional climate centers. The second pillar deals with the enhancement of the production and service delivery of meteorological services. The third one, of course, deals with the access to meteorological services. The fourth one is ensure that we produce climate services for adaptation and mitigation. And the fifth one deals with the enhancing partnerships for all for production of meteorological services and also for funding. So your question on how AMCOMET can assist the global framework of climate services is very easy that under the pillar 2, where you have production and access and delivery of meteorological services, that's where the global framework of climate services is enhanced, is embedded. This one will then, once the production and delivery of Met services is enhanced, then we will be implementing the GFCS in Africa, which is needed to be implemented at regional and national level, because the framework's benefit must be realized at the national level. And so the second pillar, once you to enhance production of Met services, means you actually improve the observation network, the telecommunication network for service delivery, the climate services information system for processing, and also delivery of these services. So pillar 2 of the AMCOMET process enhances this. Pillar 5 also helps it get resources through partnerships of funding mechanisms. We approach relevant partners, and also we ensure that there is cooperation in Africa on production or enhancement of weather and climate services. So that's how AMCOMET is helping it, through political process, through funding mechanisms, and through cooperation. If you look at the climate change issues, you find out that Africa is the most vulnerable continent on issues of climate change. And yet, when it comes to emission of the effluents that cause climate change, Africa emits very little. And yet, it's paying the price of the global warming. If you look at the observation network globally, you find that there's a very big empty space of Africa. So when we have, and yet we need information and data for adaptation. We need information and data for mitigation. And areas which are very important are agriculture and food security, because most countries in Africa, the economy depends on agriculture, and mostly on rain-fed agriculture. We haven't gone much into irrigation. So you realize that to get a very good forecast for seasonal forecast, you need very good data and good models in order to make predictions. Now, there is also a need for enhancement of water resource management and development, because we have droughts in Africa which are prolonged, and sometimes also flooding areas which devastate countries in terms of safety of life and property, and also destruction of the environment through erosions and other areas. So we need also, in terms of health, to look at how the health situation is on Africa. On one side, in Western Africa, we have meningitis, Ebola diseases going on. On the eastern side and southern side, we have malaria, which is pandemic. In the northern areas, we have dust storms. So these are areas where we need to look and ameliorate using weather and climate data. And of course, enhance the disaster risk reduction process in Africa in order to build the resilience of communities to cope with the impacts of climate change. We cannot run away from the world. The impacts are there. What we need to do is we come up with coping mechanisms so that we are resilient to the vagaries of weather and climate. Yeah, like I said, the priority areas in Africa, we look at um, capacity development, that we need to build capacities in terms of weather and climate services to be able to improve the meteorological infrastructure so that we can observe enough weather information to also have networks of telecommunication systems that are modern, and also improve our data processing systems, dissemination systems, and have expertise in terms of training people that can ensure that we give services to areas, key areas, sectors that drive the economy. These key areas that drive the economy is like agriculture, food security, like I said, water resource management and development, the health sector, the transport sector, aviation, marine, and also areas of disaster risk reduction. And energy, hydropower is also, water is used for hydropower. So the priority areas, of course, enhancing the Met services, and also disaster risk reduction is an area we have to look for. Weather for agriculture and food security, weather and climate for water resource management, building skills of meteorological personnel in order to give better forecasts. This will ensure that the meteorological services contribute to sustainable development. Of course, areas of conservation of the environment need not be forgotten, because climate change has a devastating impact on the environment, which we need to look into.